Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am coming to you with my last video of the year, and this is possibly one of my hardest videos that I've made this year, because you know what's harder than making a top 10 best movies of the year? A top 10 worst movies of the year, because I feel like for every good movie that Hollywood brings us, 3 or 4 bad movies follow it. So there are a lot more bad movies to go through than there are good movies to go through. And hence, it's hard to find out which deserve to be in those top 10 slots, or most likely will get that golden raspberry next year. Bringing the gold raspberry reference in there for worst movie. But, essentially, I'm pretty sure you guys will be thinking, like, oh, this movie's definitely going to be on this list, and it probably won't show up. But, I did try my best to find out which movies I felt were the worst of the worst this year. So, I don't want to keep y'all holed up. Let's get right to it. Coming in at number 10 is another reboot that tries to recapture the Brandon Lee masterpiece. That's right, at number 10 I am putting The Crow. When I went to see this movie, I tried to leave nostalgia out of it because, if you think nostalgia thinking of Brandon Lee, then you already know this movie's gonna suck. But, I tried to leave it out, try to be fair, and even so, with the way they made Bill Skarsgård look, that was first a no-no. And then secondly, with the way the story went, I was like, wow. No, there's like no good part of here that resembles The Crow, in my opinion. Because, he is killing people that didn't even have anything to do with Shelley's death, which is what The Crow actually does. The one good thing they kind of actually did was try to put in a moment that was supposed to be in the original Crow, but which was, the Reaper and everything, where he sees all the crows and everything. But the thing is that was not enough to recapture it. We didn't even get the crow look until like the very end, and I was like, what is this? That's not how this is supposed to work. Essentially, nothing's gonna top that Brandon Lee Crow, and I really wish they would just put it to bed already. Coming in at number 9 is another reboot of, this time, of a slasher flick that was once a sleeper hit, Strangers Chapter 1. Do you guys remember that first Strangers movie where, 2 people at a vacation home trapped in their house because there are killers out there trying to get to them? Well, you know what? This one tries to recapture that first movie magic, and it doesn't even come close. I remember seeing this movie and I was like, this is so funny that, it's just stupid, because there were so many moments these people could get away. The first one actually felt like they wanted to leave, but they couldn't leave because they had no idea where these people were. These people knew they were watching them, but they didn't know what they were doing. They were actually smarter. In this one, they just aren't smart at all. Neither the people who are getting, being stalked, or the killers themselves, because you could see them almost everywhere and you know where they are. They could have easily gotten away. And what's worse about this is that this is supposed to be a trilogy. I don't know what Brian Bertino is trying to do, trying to bring back this classic, but when those other two chapters come out, God help us. Coming in at number 8 was a movie that Wyatt Russell tried, his hand at horror with, Night Swim, the movie that was based off the short film of the same name, and that's where this movie should have stopped, because they were just trying to stretch it out from I don't recall, I think it was a 10-minute movie to a 90-minute movie that was just obscenely boring. It didn't make sense to me at all, and honestly, the simple, answer to this, you want to survive? Don't go in the pool. It's interesting how, with 2024 being the year of horror, as many good horror movies there were just as many bad ones. Because at number 7, we have another horror movie that did not meet the mark, and that was Tarot. Interestingly enough, I actually wanted this movie to do well, because I was expecting it to be kind of like Ouija, but with tarot cards. The thing is that, it completely missed its mark, because it doesn't explore anything. It just basically says, oh, you're gonna die? Well, you die. That's it. No depth, no build-up, stupid characters at that. And wow, that just makes me feel, so disappointed. The only thing that makes me even madder when it comes to being disappointed by a movie I was expecting to be good is seeing a movie that trashes on my favorite horror novelist, which is, of course, Stephen King. And that is exactly what Salem's Lot did. Now, any Stephen King fan probably knows that Salem's Lot is a slow moving pace, but it gives us a huge payoff in the end. This movie is slow, no payoff whatsoever. Honestly, makes me feel mad for it to say based off the Stephen King novel, because I've read this book a couple times, and I can assure you there was nothing in this movie that was in the Stephen King novel. They just took the name. That was it. I mean, no. If you're a fan of Stephen King and you haven't seen Salem's Lot, just watch the 1979 version. It's way better. Don't even touch this one. Moving away from horror now to the Sony Spider-Man universe. That's right. Yeah, I wasn't going to forget doing one of those. And that is, of course, the first one is Kraven the Hunter. This movie was in release hell, I guess you can call it that, because it was already made. It was originally supposed to come out in 2023, then it got pushed to the early 2024, and then got pushed back again to the end of 2024. But after I saw it, I was like, if this is all Aaron Taylor Johnson is doing, I'm like, wow, he's turning in a bad year, because he was the only one who tried to make this film work with trashy writing that was supposed to be build up for some kind of a sequel when we already knew this universe was over. I'm just glad he did Nosferatu, because I mean, this movie was terrible. Okay, I will say I'm a bigger fan of DC than I am of Marvel. Batman is without a doubt one of my favorite heroes, and he's got some of the best villains, without a doubt, number one being the Joker. And who cannot deny that Todd Phillips made an amazing Joker movie in 2019? So what do? You make a sequel that wasn't even supposed to exist. Yes, right. At number 4, I'm putting Joker Folie à Deux. And it is a sequel that is an insult to that Todd Phillips original movie. It was like, he got this, he didn't even want to make this sequel, yet, Warner Brothers, kind of pushed him, giving him more money. And you know what? He said, here's what I'm going to do with your money. I'm going to make a sequel that makes no sense whatsoever, which is sad, because this movie, how it ended in 2019, could have gone in so many different directions that could have made it great. But instead, we get a stupid love story that doesn't even make any sense. The Broadway musical didn't even need to be there. And, I don't understand why Hollywood does that. But I mean, this movie essentially was probably going to make the list because, like I said, it shouldn't have even existed. Including both of the Sony Spider-Man universe movies on this list, the only thing worse than Kraven is Madam Web. I never even heard of this character until, the movie came out. But, I mean, I never understood it at all, because there was a character that was supposed to look like Spider-Man, and they weren't Spider-Man. And all the characters really made, no sense, and didn't even make a challenge to try to make an effort of making this movie good. Not even Dakota Johnson. And I mean, I believe there's a video somewhere of her, trashing this movie somewhere. But I mean, the thing is that this is probably the worst superhero movie I've ever watched. Which is probably why, so many movies nowadays, they are remembered for being stupid. And this is probably one of those movies, that's going to be in this generation say, you know what? This movie is worth remembering because it is so stupid. Zack Snyder. He has not turned in a lot of good movies in my time. Not saying every movie he's made is bad, but with Rebel Moon, I actually did try to give it a chance. I mean, part 1, I just said, maybe this is the buildup. Maybe we'll get more in part 2. And when I saw part 2, I was like, I waited for this shit show. I was like, no. This is supposed to be Zack Snyder's version of Star Wars. It's Zack Snyder's version of something, but it is not Star Wars in any way. I mean, it's like a bunch of different sci-fi mechanics and movies just jumbled into one thing. I don't know what sci-fi movies were put in here, but none of it was Star Wars at all. I mean, no. If any part of this movie says Star Wars to anybody, please explain to me how, because the only thing I see is just trash and a big mess. Coming in at number 1 comes from the video game genre. And if any of you guys had a first look at a movie and then seen it right away before even seeing the trailer, you know the movie's going to be trash? Well, of course, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have had those moments. Well, you know what? Borderlands was another one of them. Because, I mean, God, I didn't really even see this movie to know that it was going to be bad. And when I finally did, I was like, it wasn't just bad. It took bad to a whole new level. It was just, nosedive bad. Like, what the hell happened? Not only is the fact that it is horribly miscasted as well, but also their choice of director was wrong. They chose Eli Roth to direct this movie, and for a guy who's normally known in the splatter horror scene, I mean, they horribly chose the wrong director, because this man is used to doing rated R films and they slapped a PG-13 rating on it, and that's a big no-no right there, because when you slap PG-13 over a movie that should be rated R, it never really works out. And I mean, wow. Not only is the cast, miscasted, the cast acts like they don't even care. They don't want nothing to do with this movie, along with the fact that the CGI is terrible as well. This is not even half-ass CGI. This is no ass, because no one even cares to hide the fact that there's green screen everywhere. I mean, this is essentially what happens when you try to make a movie that is supposed to be, R-rated, but turn it into a PG-13 and get a crew that simply just does not care. Because I can say with full confidence that whoever was in the making of this movie simply just did not care. Because I feel that Borderlands could have been a great, trilogy if it was done right. But this is Hollywood's way of saying, you know what? People love this video game so much, we're going to spite the fans by doing everything wrong. I am so sorry to all those fans of Borderlands who had to sit through this mess. Alright, well that wraps up my top 10 worst movies of 2024. Again, thank you to everybody who comes to support my channel, whether you are a subscriber, casual viewer, whether you leave me a like, a dislike, whether you leave me comments too as well, because I'm grateful for those. But I mean, I'd really like to know also, what are your worst movies of 2024? Please leave those in the comments down below as well. And from me to you, I hope everyone has a great new year. I'll see you guys in 2025. Stay epic!